Fax is a mature technology. It has been around forever, but it is secure, provides delivery receipt, and is ubiquitous. Everyone has access to a fax machine or fax server. Therefore, its use continues to increase with organizations that work with sensitive data. In healthcare, automating a tedious manual process not only saves time and money, but also helps keep the data secure and accurate. For 25 years, we struggle with automating the next steps of classification, data extraction, and entry of data from faxes into EMR, EHR systems, and other applications. Then we discovered Episoft. And as you will see today, it has opened the world to our clients to automate what used to seem impossible, freeing up their teams to focus on growth and their core business and not keying and rekeying data they received via fax or email. Let's talk about some of the challenges. Healthcare data is growing at an alarming rate. Most of this data is unstructured. Processing these documents and ensuring privacy and compliance requires substantial manual review and data entry. It's intensive, inefficient, and prone to human errors. There's no reliable and cost-effective way to extract information from these documents to be used down the line. Needless to say, there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to efficiency, automation, and digital transformation, which Episoft continues to tackle. As you can see from the slide, manually processing this data is very expensive and time-consuming. The data errors alone cost healthcare organizations over $13.3 billion. When healthcare organizations introduce intelligent document processing software, such as Episoft Transact, we already saw the cost savings, but the productivity impact is staggering. Many healthcare organizations receive hundreds of thousands of documents each day, with each fax taking between 5 to 9 minutes to fully process. Episoft can cut that time down to 1 to 2 minutes per fax. So, what is the solution? Episoft uses a combination of technologies wrapped around capture, classification, extraction, and exporting of the data to accelerate the processing of these documents. Not only will the processing of your documents be greatly increased, but the data will be more accurate. I will now turn the presentation over to Mike Baccio from Episoft, who will dive a little deeper into how Episoft Transact software works and how it'll save your organization time and money.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Episoft Transact is the answer to eliminate manual processing, potential errors in manual processing, making your data actionable, and streamlining many of your current processes. Episoft has been utilized to solve these inefficiencies inside organizations that have structured, semi-structured, and most importantly, unstructured data, which most of you probably have to deal with on a daily basis. In the slide above, we are depicting the flow of data inside of Episoft Transact. Inside this flow, Episoft utilizes automation, machine learning, and AI to fully automate the flow of that information. I would like to break down individual components of the process flow above in the next few slides, and we will also be providing details during our demonstration with Jeff after my presentation. The first step in the automation process is how do we get the documents or data into Episoft Transact? Episoft is set up to monitor multiple devices, programs, or file shares on the network. One of those mechanisms that you might be very familiar with is receiving data via write-fax or write-fax routing. Episoft seamlessly integrates with write-fax so you can intelligently use Transact to route appropriate documents that are received via fax seamlessly. Alternatively, we support multiple ingestion methods such as email inbox monitoring, shared folders on the network, direct web scanning, and others. We will automatically grab the documents needed and start the next step in the process, which is image processing and classification. Image processing, or as some others call it, image cleanup or document normalization, is the next step in the automation process or journey. The documents that come from the ingestion step previously are processed through our OCR engines. I say engines as we have the capability to do full OCR on machine print or handwritten documents, depending on your use case. The full OCR allows you to do image cleanup for better accuracy once we begin the classification and extraction of metadata from your documents. It also allows us to provide a text searchable PDF to make that document now searchable, making your documents actionable in the future. Once we have ingested and provided image enhancement, we utilize Episoft's Transact's proprietary classification engine to detect what type of document we're working with. Is it a patient onboarding form? Is it an insurance statement, etc.? And where the document begins and where it ends. Is it a one-page document? Is it a 20-page document? And so on. This is an important step in your automation to provide classification or separation without having to manually separate multi-page documents or add separator sheets. This automation step is critical to provide an efficient way to route documents based on the document type and then extract important business data from those documents, which takes us to the next automation step, which is data extraction. Data extraction is also a very critical step in this automation process. In the screenshot above, imagine having to enter all of the information manually. This is just one page. What if you have 1,000, 10,000, 1 million pages of document that needs to be manually keyed into your systems of record? Very time consuming and inefficient. Episoft Transact utilizes intelligent document extraction with machine learning and AI to look for information on a page, similarly how a human being does it. We look for keywords and values from top to bottom and left to right, looking for these key values based on matching the keywords and their outputs. Think of pattern recognition. We're looking at patterns of words or iterations of words to find it on a page. Historically, OCR or capture technology would need to create templates for each individual document type. We have the capability at Episoft to do so for structured forms, but our intelligent extraction module allows us to be more accurate with unstructured documents, utilizing our technology to extract patterns of data elements regardless of location or page. The next step in our automation is validation. Validation is necessary for any critical data elements that you would like to be reviewed by a human being. Episoft Transact can be configured for you to validate key fields or specific information that is most important to you. Each extraction field has confidence scores and rules that can be set up appropriately for your business case, which gives you control on which fields to validate or continue a straight-through processing. The last step in our automation journey is to deliver to your desired endpoint. So what does Episoft Transact deliver? We deliver the text searchable PDF during the image processing and classification phase, and the extracted metadata or data fields during the extraction validation phase to any endpoint you choose. Normally, our healthcare customers will send this information to an EHR system like Epic, while others will choose to send to an enterprise content management system, business process management, RPA tool, etc., for further workflow or document retention purposes. With over 1,200 customers that utilize hundreds of downstream systems, Episoft Transact can deliver to your endpoint of choice. I have covered briefly the automation journey of a document inside of Episoft Transact. Now that you have some context on our solution, Jeff will provide you with a demonstration to better understand real-world documents and how we automate them to eliminate current manual processes. Go ahead, Jeff.
So let's begin the demo. I'm going to start by showing you the documents we'll be working with. So the first one is this multi-page PDF healthcare document. Let's open it up and just take a quick look at it. As you can see, it's 8 pages. It consists of a fax cover sheet, a medical invoice, including a table. So we're going to be extracting the data directly from this table. I'll move on. The next one is the HIPAA privacy authorization form, which is a multi-page document. We'll be we'll be extracting a couple of fields from here. And as I move on, we go into our referring a patient. It's a patient referral form. It's multi-page, and it has the first page is like an instruction form, which is always included, and then we have the form itself with a lot of data. Now this is an interesting one because not only am I going to extract all these fields, but I'm actually going to use some of these fields to then reach out and do a patient lookup. So for example, once I have extracted a patient first name, last name, and date of birth, I can actually do an API call to Epic to pull back the social security number of the patient, the MRN number of the patient. An MRN number, most of you probably know it already, but for those who don't, is like a patient identification used at healthcare systems. When a patient gets entered into a system in a hospital, they get assigned an MRN number. So I can actually pull that data back so I have that data and I can use it later on. Let's move on. I have a handwritten prescription. This is really nice because we can use Episoft's power, its OCR power, to actually turn handwritten data into real usable data. Same thing with script. We could do a pretty good job at converting script to real data, and I'll show you how that works. And finally, I have a New York State driver's license, and the reason I included this is I like to show how we can grab data from an identification form, how even if there's watermarks or a fuzzy background, we can still pull the data in. And also, I wanted to talk about how once we learn a New York State driver's license, and when I say we, I mean the system, Episoft, it'll understand any driver's license. And how it does it, this is really how the power of AI kicks in. It knows that a form like this or an identification like this has certain attributes, such as the word driver's license, such as an ID, an address, a date of birth, an expiration date. These attributes are all part of a driver's license. It doesn't have to be New York. It could be anyone in the country. So once it understands and knows how to classify and extract data from a New York State driver's license, it can understand just about any driver's license, and it's really powerful. And I'm going to close this in really quick. I want to show you one more form, which is it's a VA form, and the reason I want to show you this is because we do something a little different with this one. It's the extraction's pretty clean. We're going to pull in the patient name, which is right here, Super Airman, and a social security number. And I also want to show you how Episoft can be used with checkboxes or X boxes. So basically, it knows if there's an X here to pull in this data, the 38 CFR 3.340. If there's a checkbox here, it'll pull in the 3.342. And if neither are checked, we can actually say none. Not only that, this document I do something a little different with. I actually do some more advanced workflow with this. So once I classify this document, I'm going to then deliver it to a folder. I'm going to rename the folder Super Airman, the patient name. I'm going to create a subfolder with the date, and then I'm going to drop this separate PDF in that folder. So this is more of a little workflow demonstration. I'm going to show you very, very basic, but there will be some extraction too. So I wanted to show you that too. Let me close this up and let's get the fax going. So I'm going to bring up my right fax system. Really easy. I have it ready to go. I am going to then create a new fax with those two documents. So let's do that real quick. So destination is my internal fax number, very quick and easy. I'll enter my name, and then I'm going to attach those two files. So here's the multi-page PDF Healthcare 1 file, and then we'll also add the VA form. And this is ready to go. There's our attachment, so it's basically a fax now. This is set up now to deliver this fax. Let me hit send so it starts going. It's going to deliver this fax to a network folder that Episoft is monitoring. So if we see here, just to make sure the fax is getting ready to go, we should see it's ready. There, it's creating it. And while it's creating it, what I'd like to do is bring up that folder. So here's the folder that the fax system, in this case it's RightFax, it could be any fax system, is configured to deliver that fax to. The fax is going to deliver a multi-page PDF. So it'll be one PDF into this folder. Episoft is going to be monitoring this folder, and once that shows up here, it's going to work on it, and then we're going to go through all that in a second. So let's be patient while it comes in. It should take a few seconds. Okay, so it just arrived, and if we watch, it'll then be ingested into the Episoft Transact system. and it should disappear, and there it goes. So now we know it's being worked on. So right now, Episoft is pulling in that multi-page PDF, and it's doing its classification. It's going to do the captcha that I designed it to do, and we're going to go in and take a look at it. So let's go back to the Episoft system, or fire up the Episoft system, which is right here. So I'm going to log in to my batch instant manager because I want to see that batch. It becomes a batch at this point, and it should be the newest batch. So let's log in. And there it is. So right now it's running. It's not going to take long at all. It'll be a few seconds. And then when it's done working on it, it's going to be ready for validation. Now, validation means it's saying, take a look at the documents, make sure it did everything correctly. We're going to validate it. It's human eyes. And in healthcare, I think it's important that at least, a human looks at the data just to confirm everything was extracted properly, everything looks good. It'll give me the option and the ability to validate it, which I'll do. And it's done, it's ready. So now let's open it up. Okay, and let's go through what we got. Here's the cover sheet. So it did a really excellent job of classifying it as a cover sheet, in this case, an ATI cover sheet. And for fun, I picked one field and I extracted it from name. I don't know in real world if you'd ever need that, but I figured why not pull in a name? It's just to show you. And the next one is the medical invoice. Now you notice this one was red. Let me move up. You'll see it's red. Red is just saying that it pulled in the data, but there's either a field that was set to force validate, and I'll explain what that is. That just means that this field, no matter what, no matter how clean and how confident it is, it wants me to take a look at it. It's called a force validation. So validation would happen for one of many reasons, but one reason would be you force validate it, which is what I did, or it pulled in data from this document and the captcha was not at a high confidence level. It felt that it's got the data, but the confidence level was not as high as it should be. So it's saying, hey, take a good look at this. And that'll also be read. And I'll show you, you'll probably see that in the handwritten prescription. But let's keep going. So we have our medical invoice, and here's all the data it got along the top. And you could see the invoice number, the dates, the total amount, all that stuff along here. But now I also pulled in table data. So if I move it over here, you'll see what it did. And it's really nice. It actually pulled in each individual table field. And on purpose, I left off a dollar value on the first one, $7.45, because I wanted to show you how you always can go in and put in the dollar value. You can put in the dollar sign, clean it up. Okay, so let's go back to the field view and let's move on to the next document. Here's the multi-page HIPAA privacy authorization form. Again, did a really nice job on pulling in the data. And something else I added here was an MRN number. So on this one, I basically matched in this case, I'd probably be the individual seeking the info, maybe. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really matter. It's however you want to configure it. And if this name was found in your system, we can pull back an MRN number and make it read-only. That's kind of neat. Okay, let's work our way down to the big one, which is the referral intake form. And there it is. Now, this has a lot of data, probably about 30 or 40 fields in here. We pulled in all of them, just about. And I want to talk about a couple of them. First of all, again, on this one, I did force validate this field right here because the system is so good at pulling in data. This is a very clean form. It's confident. Everything's a very high confidence level. It's probably as close to 100% confident that it can be. So I force validate so it does show us this document. If I didn't, in theory, you can have this just actually move to the next step, which would be to export the data. But as I said earlier, I always like to at least glance, take a good look at these documents, see what Episoft did. So you can see it pulled in a lot of data. And here's where it actually took the patient first name, last name, and social security number and pulled back, patient first name, last name, and date of birth and pulled back the social security number. And that's why it's gray. It also pulled out the patient's address, city, and state. And if you notice, to prove it, the social security number here is right. But look what it is on the form. It's wrong. So maybe someone made a typo when they sent in this form. Since this patient already exists in the system, we ignore this data because we know it's wrong. Or even if it was right, it wouldn't matter. We already have the accurate data in our EMR. So we just pulled it back and filled in this field from the system, from Epic, let's say. And I think on the bottom I have an MRN number. Yep, and I pulled that too. So pretty nice. Let's move on to the handwritten
prescription. Okay, did a good job, but look, it's saying the OCR confidence was a little low on this, and it makes sense to me. Look at that. I think knowing a little bit about this is probably the USS Never Forgotten, but that's very close to a V, and it picked it up as a V. We can actually fix that very easy. Go back, and then one click, I fixed it because it warned me. It said the confidence level is low. Take a good look at it. And there might be a couple other mistakes here. Yep, this is spelt wrong. I'm not going to fix it now, but I could fix. You could see solution. That's the problem with handwritten. It's never exact, but it's still a good time saver, and it's going to pull in most of the data correctly. And finally, well, not finally, we have two more actually. We have our driver's license. Did a really good job on this. For some reason, I don't know why, I didn't set it up to pull in the date of birth. It's blank. I know it can get it. It's clear. But watch what I can do. I can put my cursor here and just click on the DOB and pulls it right in. That's because it can do that because it OCR'd every field on here. So it has an index of everything. So if I made a mistake maybe when I designed this and I didn't tell it where to look for the date of birth, I can always do a click. And I can do that in any field. Any field on here I can click and it'll change. If it was whatever's on the OCR, I can overwrite. So it's really neat. And finally, that VA form. And I wanted to show you really the check, the X box. So I X 38 CFR 3.340, and that's the data it filled in automatically. If my X was under the 3.342, these are my options. It would be 342, and if none, it would say none. So did a really nice job of figuring out what was X'd and then moving the data over. So I'm ready to validate all this. I'm going to quickly now, because I really went through it all. So now I could just hit validate because I already fixed everything. And I'm going to just validate every field that I talked about. And once I finish validating, we can move on and the validate should be complete. There's one thing I didn't validate, which I want to do now really quick, is the table. Oh, I did. Looks like it's all green. Okay, so I think it's about ready to move on. Yep, good. So this is good. Say okay. It's done. I can minimize Episoft. It did its job. So now what I'm going to show you is all the exports and some of the workflows. So let's start with the VA one. So let me open up that share. So I have a share set up called VA. And as you can see, it did what it was supposed to do. It actually created a folder called Super Airman because that was the patient name. And if I go in, this is the one. There's the date. And here is that VA form broken out on its own, delivered to a separate folder. That's the PDF. And then with it, I created a JSON file. So the JSON file is kind of neat. It's used a lot of times for data interchange. So I was able to pull in all the data that I told you about, the patient name, the date, the social security number, an e-signature that was on there, the VA address, the disability rating. There's that 3.340 instead of the 342. So that was a VA form. Pretty nice. Did a really good job. Let's look at some of the other captures we did. So if I go to my HL7 export folder, I actually could show you a little HL7 data that's here. I don't know if any of you are familiar with HL7. It's used a lot of times when EMRs are communicating data between each other from hospital to hospital or from insurance company to a hospital. So we can actually take the data we pulled off those documents, put in an HL7 format, and then push that into an EMR such as Epic. And I don't know all of HL7, but here, the important ones on here would be the patient ID, which has a lot of patient information, the insurance information, and all that data. Okay, let's close that up. The other thing I did is I broke up each individual document into its own folder here. So you could see the cover sheet, the driver's license. So let's look at the referral form. And there it is. What I did is I renamed the referral form with the MRN number. So I called it MRN number underscore doc. I mean, you can call it anything you want. And that's what I did. So I broke that out and put that under this information while I left the XML data, another format that we can export the metadata to, which you see is here. Right? So this would be a giant XML that I created one XML file that had all of the data from that entire fax. It's a lot of data. But if I stop and show you, you'll see Oh, there's an MRN number right there. So I don't know which field that is, but oh, I do. It's the HIPAA release form. It started right here. So that's the name of the file. And then I have some of the data associated with that. And as I work my way down, this is a referral form now. I see that referring provider's name. So we can do a lot of customization. I showed you how we can make one XML. We can make individual HL7s. We can make individual JSON. We can take the data or the documents, break them up, burst them out, deliver them to different folders, rename the folders with the type of document. We could rename the folder with an MRN number or any data we pull off the document. Okay, with that, I'm going to wrap up the demo. I think everyone gets a pretty good feel of the power of Episoft Transact and what you can do. The key to remember is I did show you a lot. It's customizable. So if your goals are just classification of documents and really workflow, so just saying, thinking of a document coming in that has multi-pages, having the ability to automate that whole process. So having a system break up that document, classify, deliver different documents to different locations based on the type of document or the data found in the document, you can see how very powerful it could be. And then obviously, in a more complex scenario, having a document come in, classifying it, capturing the document, formatting the data in the data that you need to import into your EMR, and really automating almost that whole process. And the only reason I say almost is you're probably going to have one point where you'll have a humanized look at it. But you could see how that might be 3 or 4 clicks to take something that might have been, a half hour of work, maybe an hour of work. If you got a 20-page document and then by hand you have to look at it, break it up into different files, send those files or copy them to different folders, rename the folders, look at the data now and start typing it in, it's a massive time saver. So let's get back to the slides.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. During this webinar, we walked through various examples of healthcare workflows to identify opportunities for automation, allowing you to see when and where intelligent document processing might be most beneficial for your organization. If you would like to learn more or get started, please reach out using the contact information below or contact your account manager directly.